In this video, we're going to have a look at innovative resources and then part in assessment. We're going to have a look at a number of different examples to get you thinking and then ask you some questions at the end to really start exploring this area. There are many different types of assessment, and some of these can be formative and some can be summative. The traditional methods are often augmented by more interactive technologies, because in education we're always striving to improve the quality and excitement of assessment. So this video, we'll have a look at some of these. We'll look at things like blogs and podcasts, etc. Some ideas of how to create them, the benefits, and have a think about what you could do with them in your subject area. So first of all, if we have a look at blogs as an assessment tool. Now, blogs are online journals, places where someone can share their ideas and collaborate with others. These can be structured or unstructured. So what I mean by that is there could be somewhere where a person can just write stuff, so that's unstructured, and then that can be commented on, or structured. There could be a template provided by the tutor themselves. There could be formal or informal, so a place where the things that are written will be assessed. So that's formal. Informal is more of a reflective place where there's just general discussions going on to try and complement what's happening on the course itself. Blogs can also be continuous or specific. So the blog could continue throughout their course and maybe throughout the whole career in education, or specific, it's just for that module or for that assessment. They can be open or closed. What I mean by that is public, in the public domain, so they can be shared about and people can then discuss and comment on these sort of things, or it can be closed, i.e. only the person who's written it and maybe the tutor can see these sort of things. It can then offer collaboration and self and peer assessment. How do blogs work within your area? Are there any issues? Well, it could be that there's a whole range of different things to think about. So what issues could you have? There is the technology. What technology to use? Who can use it? What experience does anybody have? There could be access. Who can access this technology? Is it possible for the learner to be able to access it while in college? What about outside college? What about via mobile phone, etc.? And also, how can that be shared? How are you as a teacher going to get access to this blog? And it's ultimately controlled by the student themselves. So it's just making sure that you know how you can read these different blogs and be able to get the information out of it you need, because ultimately if it's an assessment tool, that's what you need. And it's also an issue of rigor. How are you going to ensure that what they write meets the criteria that they're expected to write? That's what I mean about the structured, unstructured, formal, informal argument. How are you going to make sure that they fulfill what criteria you're setting out in the assessment? One example, what we just had a look at there, was WordPress.com. That's an example of a blog, but there's many others out there. You can have a look yourself. Podcasts. Podcasts assessment, these have been around for a while now, and it's worth remembering that they're still there and they're still a valid method of teaching and supporting learning. As an assessment tool, what podcasts allow you to do is people to record their voices and then put it somewhere on the net or somewhere where it can be shared. So it really allows those who cannot express themselves in writing to get out the information that they want to do. And it can have such rich content because they can really express themselves and talk about the thing that maybe they couldn't really do if they were typing it out. Again, you come back to the formal, informal, structured, unstructured debate of how you're going to formulate and create the podcast and suggest to them how they're going to produce this information. And again, the public and private, where's it going to be stored? Is it just going to be a sound file that they can send you and you can have a look at? Or is it going to be somewhere on the internet where a number of people could have a look at, maybe their own peers, etc.? So it's worth thinking about that. And you can have a bit of fun with that. You can get them to record their own radio show. So they can start adding music to the sound file. They can start really maybe adding jingles, etc. But then maybe having a bit of fun with it and expressing what they want. A lot of work with BTEC National 16 to 18-year-old students in ICT. I had a lot of dyslexic students who really appreciated being able to explain themselves fully. The catch is, with something like a podcast, is once it's produced and ready to be listened to, if they don't meet the criteria or there's something missing as you're listening to it, you think, oh, they haven't done that and they haven't done that. To then go back and redo it again is a bit of a sort of a bit of pain for the learner. They've done all this hard work on it, and then they've had to go back and do it again. So what I suggested when I was doing it was to create like a second episode or a supplemental podcast which covered those extra areas that weren't covered in the previous one. So it's something to think about. And what you could also get them to do is include a script to go alongside it. So they've actually created a script and planned the podcast beforehand, so it sounds a bit more, well, a bit better produced than this. I'm just rabbiting on. But, when they've got some material to go alongside that, and that could be, if you have difficulties with exam boards, etc., about I need to hand something in, well, that script could be the thing you hand in, as well as the media to support that. One of the tools you can use is this free tool called Audacity. That's what you're looking at right now. And it's really easy. Once you've recorded, all you're doing is you're pressing the record button, and it's recording my voice as we're going along now. Hitting the stop button stops it recording. You can play it back whenever you want, and then you can save it as a sound file. You can also add in all sorts of different bits of music. It's a simple tool: record, stop, play, but it has a lot of depth to it. So once you get into it, you can really start editing and producing a sound file. In fact, a lot of early sort of social media stars such as Lily Allen, etc., started using Audacity as the way to create their first initial songs, because you can have layers, you can have all sorts of different things. It's worth having a look at. Audacity. You have to search it on Google and then download the tool, and you can also then save it as an MP3. Another option you could think about is what we're looking at now: videos and screencasters assessment. Video work has been around for a while, but now it's getting easier because of the equipment. So you can really use mobile phones, flip cameras as they're called, where they're very much a touch button camera, and it just allows the capture of really useful information very quickly. So as I say, you can record what's happening on the screen, like I'm doing now, or you can video a student explaining a concept. I've seen lots of different evidence of ways this has been done. Teachers have recorded their students in an interview explaining the work they've been doing. They've recorded them as they've done it. There's also a way of developing a digital story, so they can actually create a sort of mini movie of the concept they're trying to explain. And it's very simple to do now with the tools that are on offer. Windows comes with Windows Media, where you can really sort of get in there and create your own video. I'm using something called Camtasia, which isn't free, but it's one of the options. And there's something called Screencast-O-Matic that you might want to have a look at. That's an online screen capture tool which allows you to capture things. It does seem a little bit more complicated, but the amount of information you can get and be able to explain to get through the assessment is very, very in-depth, because you can really start looking at different layers of information they can provide you. You can always go back and edit it if you wish, or you can, again, like we talked about in the podcasts, add supplementary information. One of the things to remember, though, is the video file is going to be pretty big. So where you're going to store it, there's always YouTube. Don't be frightened of YouTube. It's there for us to use. Animation. Another way of capturing how the learning that's taking place in a way where it's a little bit more creative. And this has been great fun when we've been trying this out with loads of different students, from adults to children. There's animation, and there's also the comic strip. So if you've got more time on your hands, they can start creating animations of what they've been doing. And I've seen a lot of creative ways of using Lego and creating stop-go animation using Lego, or the comic strip as you see below. There's online websites that allow you to be able to create animation very quickly. The three at the bottom, Devolver, is an animation tool which is really good for seeing things happen. Read Write Think is more of a children's sort of focus, but it's a good way of creating a quick comic strip. And my personal favourite is Strip Creator, and that's my emergency lesson. So if I get called to cover anything and I haven't got a clue what they've done or where they're up to, I ask them to recap what they've done so far using Strip Creator and getting them to create. They've got 3 strips to try and explain what they've learnt so far to me pretending that I don't know anything about what they're going on about. It's creative, it's fun, no art skills are needed, and it can be quite fun to mark. And you've got the ability then to create a showcase of achievements so far. So you can have all the students' different work either digitally online or get them to print them out, and you can be as creative as you want. The restriction is obviously you've only got so many uh, sort of sections for them to be able to explain potentially quite complex situations, but that's how you get to be creative. They've got to think a bit more concise about what they're doing. Like there. And then polling. Now, this is a great way of capturing what the students have learned very quickly. And it's a quick way of getting knowledge assessment checked throughout the lesson. It's just like question and answering, but then capturing that information and the feedback. Now, you could do this anywhere. You could do this at the beginning. You could say, hey, what do you know already about frogs? You can then say, right, what have we learned so far on frogs in the middle or at the end? Is there anything you don't know about frogs that you want to know more about? So you can really add polling at any time. It's just up to you what technology you use to gather this information. In the old days, they had voting panels. You know, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Everyone had one of them. You press the button, A, B, C, or D, and it came up on the screen. Now they're still available, but they're very expensive. They need installation, and you need a bit of training to get the questions and systems to run. Nowadays, there's loads of smartphone apps out there you can use. So even if not every student has a smartphone, you can get them into groups and work in teams. Someone might have a smartphone that can download one of the apps. And also, don't forget SMS. Text messaging is one of the most ubiquitous tools out there. It's simple, it's quick, and it's effective. You could create something like a text wall or get them to answer a question via a mobile phone you have ready. Some examples of tools you can use. There's Socrative, which is an app for smartphones and iPads, etc., which is a really quick and easy polling tool. Kosu is new on the market. That you can create a whole lesson then with lots of different learning activities, a little bit more interactive than just answering simple polls. And then my favourite at the moment is an SMS text messaging system from Xlearn, which is called TextWall, and that's really simple to set up. You have to pay a bit of a license. It was £30, but then you've got a wall then with a dedicated number where people text to, and you can control a little bit about the question and answering and what goes on there. iPads and tablets as assessment. Now, there's so much out there. I can't talk to you in this session about them, and they pick up on a lot of the things we've talked about already. But there's a myriad of different apps out there which you can use in education. They're all intuitive and fun, creative and flexible. My main concern though is that if you go with something like Apple or a Microsoft product, then you're getting yourself caught one system that you can't get out of. So if you start creating learning material for Apple and then suddenly nobody has iPads anymore, they have something else, then you're going to have to change. And it does worry me about that. I'd rather you create something that's more generic, that everyone has access to. So even if you can't get a hold of that classroom set of iPads, or that not everyone can bring in an iPad, you get a chance to have a go at the thing. So creating something online that can be viewed through any smartphone is much more effective than something that can be picked up for an iPad. But they are easy to use, and if you can get people to use them, then there's a great chance for you to have a bit of fun. Some questions to think about then. Whatever method you choose for assessment, you need to think about these things. One, is it appropriate? Don't just use some of these fancy technology things because you fancy using it because it's all flashy and whizzy. Is it appropriate? Will it work in this context you're trying to use it? And is it appropriate for your learners? It could be that a jigsaw is the best thing for your learners. It could be iPad app is the best thing for your learners. Check what is appropriate. Is it inclusive? Are you ensuring that everyone has the best opportunity to be able to have a go at getting involved in that assessment? It could be that not everyone's got an iPad or a smartphone, but you could create groups and make them group leader or make them the communicator and do a bit of teamwork in there. But it's about making sure that no one is pushed out to one side, that everyone gets the best chance they can. And then is it accessible? What that means is if you do create something that's inclusive, can everyone access it? So is there any issues about visual impairment, hearing impairment, Is there something about the fine motor skills needed to create or generate that type of assessment? Or maybe you're expecting them to explain something vocally that's just beyond their capabilities. So have a think about those three questions, and that can be put against everything, every type of assessment you think of. So questions for you though. How do you think the teacher's confidence affects the adoption of any of these ideas? Are the methods that we've discussed through this presentation rigorous? Are there any issues about whether you think those could be challenged as valid and reliable methods of assessment? Can this method, whichever method you're thinking of, be used as summative as well as formative? It's quite easy to use a lot of these tools as formative assessment, so you're checking their learning throughout. When they come to hand something in, do you then go to a workbook? Do you then get them to sit an exam? What is it? Can we not use these tools a bit more effectively as summative assessments, which can then be checked against others and give a grade given? And ultimately, how could you use any of these in your subject area? Have a think about those, and Hilary wants you to report back. Thanks for listening. This is Richard Nelson, signing out.